I am, as I said, Peggy Houston from the Operational Excellence Program Office at UC Berkeley. And for those of you who aren't aware of what is the Operational Program Office at UC Berkeley, we were originally created in 2010 to manage the Operational Excellence Program. And I'm going to talk more about that program in just a minute. We are now part of the Vice Chancellor of Administration and Finance organization. Our scope of work includes managing projects and providing services to get to successful projects, and that includes revenue-generating projects. The staff in the program office specialize in financial analysis, data analysis, project management, change management, idea development, market analysis, and also communications. I'm going to today start by giving you some background on the Operational Excellence Program, which was our program of efficiency projects. And that'll be good background for you as I move into revenue generation. Then I'm going to share how we've leveraged what we learned in this program as we move forward into revenue generation and what we mean by revenue generating projects, followed by an opportunity for all of you to get up on your feet and participate in a little exercise around revenue generating ideas. And then summarize the results of our efforts to date on the Berkeley campus around revenue generating, and then wrap it up with your reactions and comments. Feel free to ask questions. We do have somebody here that's going to help with a microphone. So just remember that you've got to wait until the microphone gets there so that we can get your question recorded. Also, there are some handouts out here. I did not bring enough handouts. I guess I'm saving trees here, but there are some handouts, and I will refer to some of the slides that are in those handouts in the slide deck as well. So first, some background on the Berkeley campus. Our annual revenue is at $2.48 billion. We have 36,000 students, 350 degree programs, 1,600 full-time faculty, 600 part-time faculty, 22 Nobel laureates, not that that has anything to do with my presentation, I just like saying that. And then, of course, teaching, research, and public service is our mission. Does anyone here have a guess about what percentage of UC Berkeley's revenue comes from the state of California?
Less than 10.
10 is a good guess. So this shows 13, and I know it's under 13% now. But in 2012, 2013, it was at 13, and just a decade earlier, we were at 34%. And so I'm sure this looks familiar, and that gap has been filled primarily with increasing student fees. And then this shows that state institutions across the country are experiencing the same decline in state appropriations as we all have been experiencing here in the state of California. So the financial sustainability for UC Berkeley is a multi-pronged effort. Berkeley's efforts include taking advantage of efficiencies, looking for additional revenue opportunities in research and philanthropy, enabling online opportunities, building out a remote location. We have one in Richmond that's about 7 miles from the campus and is an ideal location for research projects, and enabling revenue-generating ideas in academic and administrative units that will create revenue that stays in those units. So I'm going to take just a few minutes to talk a little bit about the OE program. While we're here today to talk about revenue generation, what we learned and the skills that we gained during the course of our OE program have been very beneficial for us as we move into enabling revenue-generating projects. So the OE program, if we think back in 2009, the state was drastically cutting our budgets. The campus needed to do something other than across-the-board budget cuts, which had been our strategy up until that point. We knew that the state funding was not going to return to past levels, and the disinvestment in our administrative services for many years was impacting our ability to deliver on our mission. So the chancellor kicked off, and it was Chancellor Bergeneau at the time, kicked off the Operational Excellence program or effort. He was looking for where to invest in order to get to long-term savings for the campus. The first phase was a diagnostic, and the outcome were 7 areas that had the greatest potential for savings and that also had to be addressed in order to sustain any changes that we made. So the 2 foundational areas that needed to be addressed were financial planning and high-performance culture, or investment in our workforce. And then savings, the areas were energy, IT, organizational restructuring, procurement, and student systems. We then moved into a design phase, which included hundreds of members of the community participating on developing proposals to achieve the OE goals. And those 3 goals were to reduce or to get to $75 million in ongoing annual savings, to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of our administrative operations, and to instill a culture of continuous improvement. 50 proposals came out of that. We approved 25 projects for the campus. We are now at 13 complete. Some 10 are still active. A few were stopped. We're on track to achieve the $75 million in savings in 2018. We are seeing measurable results in the effectiveness and efficiency of our administrative operations, and we're working on embedding continuous improvement mechanisms into the operations. Other institutions that have had OE-type efforts on your campus? Nobody else is doing OE, nobody else is doing efficiency. Everybody in the room, I'm sure, is doing efficiencies. It's a common element there. So as we began to think about revenue generation, we started by looking back at the OE program and did an assessment of what were the factors that have enabled us to get to the successes that we've been able to get to date. And we identified 5 key areas. The first one being executive leadership. The chancellor was clearly the leader and stood out in front to champion this effort. However, decisions were made by committee. And the executive committee included, for the chancellor, the provost, the vice chancellor of administration and finance, and then also in the OE program office, there's a faculty head, and he was the 4th member. Clear governance. We pushed decision-making as far into the organization as we could, so there was a project manager for each project. Sponsors, clearly identified sponsors for each project. The OE program office also played in the decision-making. A coordinating committee that included the 3 major populations of the campus, the faculty, students, and staff, and then also the executive committee, the deciding body that I just spoke of. A partnership between the academic and administrative sides of the house. Each initiative team in the design phase had 2 sponsors, 1 academic at the dean level and 1 administrative at the vice chancellor or associate vice chancellor level. The executive committee, the coordinating committee, the project teams had academic and administrative representation through all phases of planning, implementation, and now even in the ongoing improvement. We professionalized project management on the campus. So where managing a project used to be assigned to subject matter experts and they were to do it in their spare time because it takes no skill to manage a project, we changed that and we assigned project managers and change managers, professional communications people. But we also blended that with the subject matter experts on campus and our technical experts on campus. We also are methodology. We have a defined methodology for managing projects at the Berkeley campus, which tightly weaves standards for project management along with change management. Our philosophy is deploying new technology is not success. Changing the mindsets and behaviors in order to realize the full potential of new technology is success. And then also investment. It takes time and money to successfully implement change. Campus invested $75 million in the OE program, a one-time investment to return $75 million annually. The program started in 2009, and the last project won't end until 2016. Changing behavior takes time and effort. So we are now 3 years into the implementation of the OE program, and we have much more work to do. The campus's financial situation has not yet returned to full strength. As our Vice Chancellor of Administration and Finance, John Wilton, has said, you can't cut your way to excellence. So now I'm going to shift tracks and talk about revenue generation. In the slide above, the blue indicates areas where we have little flexibility with revenue. So student tuition and fees, which are dictated by the regents, federal grants and contracts, which have been impacted by the sequestration, state educational appropriations, while the cuts have stopped, we haven't gotten that back either. So we look at, in the gray area, where do we have flexibility to look at new revenue for the institution? And that's in the two areas that are titled Other and Gifts and Investments. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 6 areas where we're focused on financial sustainability. I talked about the operational excellence. We also have, on the revenue side, research, philanthropy, online strategy, and the Richmond Bay campus. And what we are responsible for in the program office is what John Wilton refers to as unit-level entrepreneurship. Our job is to enable revenue-generating projects in the areas of the units. So I want to, on the table, there is the slides that I just referred to about where we're looking at revenue opportunities at the Berkeley campus. And at your table, I'd like for you to just spend a couple of minutes and share what revenue opportunities are you looking at right now at your campuses? So the slides with the 6 areas and the breakdown of our revenue, what does it look like at your campus, and where are you focusing on revenue generating ideas? Okay, if I could just hear a couple of ideas that you shared. How about something from this table here?
Growing the contract and grants.
Growing contracts and grants area. Yeah, that's great. Another idea. How about something from this table? Gifts and endowments. Good. Yeah.
We have hot houses and entrepreneurship.
Hot houses and entrepreneurship. That's great. Great.
We're not sure exactly where the money is, but it's fun.
Yeah. That's good.
Well, I was thinking about actually doing in-house confidential destroy and recycling programs for the universities and selling it back to the recycler companies as well. So
Great.
We're actually doing a good service, we're being green, and we're also generating green.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, so we found at Berkeley also that there were many things that are already happening across the campus. And how do we leverage what's already happening on the campus and continue to build on that and go even further with it? So in addition to looking at, okay, what helped us in the past, we also looked at what's different about revenue generation than what we saw with the OE program. And we came up with three key areas that we found were different. One was we had those defined areas to focus in with the OE program. We had identified 7 key areas. With revenue generation, it's kind of all across the board. As you just heard from the examples that came up, it's all over the place on campus. And so where do we focus? Secondly, we have found so far with revenue generating ideas that the ideas tend to come in from individuals, but we also learned in the OE program that there's benefit to having multiple people looking at and working on ideas. And so how do we create the environment that's going to enable that to happen? And then thirdly, our environment tends to be an environment of constraints. And so while the OE program, we were making transformational change in the OE program, we were making transformational change in a really familiar environment, an environment of constraints. We know efficiencies, we know how to crunch. But now we want to think about what are the opportunities, what are the possibilities? And that's a really different place to be thinking and a different place to be working. So we decided we need to come up with a strategy around revenue generation. And we referred to a framework that's introduced in a book called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, that's by Richard Rumelt, UCLA business professor. And Rumelt identifies 3 key components to a good strategy, and good strategy is what we want, not bad strategy. So the 3 key components are the diagnosis of the challenge you're trying to overcome, the guiding policy for your approach to overcome the challenge, and an action plan or concrete steps that you'll take to overcome the challenge in accordance with the guiding policy. So our challenge is that units are now expected to be thinking about revenue and acting on revenue generating ideas. And for the most part, this is a different place for units to be thinking and acting than what they may be used to doing. Our guiding policy, we identified 4 key areas to the guiding policy: active leadership participation, leveraging existing expertise, helping people think differently, and a long-term investment focus. And so then we worked on an action plan. The action plan, I'll start with the roadmap. We started with developing a process to get from an idea to delivery. So an idea even in the exploration phase through delivery. We identified criteria, and we are continuing to identify criteria to evaluate ideas quickly and be able to move them through the process. And we want to focus our resources on the ideas that have the greatest potential. So the criteria, as you might imagine, includes revenue, time to get to that revenue, the risk, the cost of implementation, the ROI, and the probability of success. There's a question?
Yeah, can you talk about... I'll learn this eventually. Can you talk about how then you tie any of this ideation and generation of ideas to mission?
Yes. So mission is also a key component there. And mission is one that, that's an interesting debate as well. And so as an example, an idea came forward that was strictly in the exploration phase. Somebody was just suggesting this. But it came forward from the School of Optometry, and it is actually a vendor that they work with already that proposed Berkeley could have a certification in phlebotomy. They would do all of the training, the education, the work on that, but it would have the Berkeley seal on it. So it just came forward as an idea. It was very quickly shot at from every direction you can imagine. And when I pushed back and asked why, why this one? Well, it's not in alignment with the Berkeley mission, but it kind of is. If it's teaching, that kind of might fall in line with teaching. But it's not something that we have expertise in. But we have 200 and some odd degrees. I'm sure we didn't come up with all of those in 1840, when the campus was founded. And so along the lines, we have pulled in other things. And I mean, another idea that's on the table right now that we are doing some extensive research on is a conference center. We don't have expertise on the Berkeley campus and conference centers either, but we're exploring that idea. So what What criteria around mission gets an idea in or out? So it's an ongoing debate, but it definitely is one that's there. Thank you for the question. Okay, secondly is navigating the bureaucracy. Anybody else got bureaucracy on their campus? So the program office, again, our role as an enabler when it comes to bureaucracy is to build bridges across the silos that exist on campus. And often the idea generator, has a fuzzy idea that's rolling around in their head, but they're not sure who they should be talking about with that idea, or who all is going to have to be involved in the conversation. And so our role is to be looking for who should that be. One of the things that we've done on campus is identify and begin partnering with functional experts, or what we call functional experts. And so by their profession, it might be legal, HR, business contracts, real estate, and bring them in early on in the idea exploration to not squash an idea, but to think about how we can build on that idea to make it a good idea. Articulating the idea in itself is a service that we provide. Again, people have a fuzzy idea in their head, but they need help to articulate that and to think through the questions like, who would your customer be? Who might your competition be? You'd be surprised. Every time we ask who might your competition be, there is no competition. They have the original idea that is going to be the one. So we help people think through those. And again, an idea, what it starts out at and what it might become may be very different things, but it's that process that we want people participating in on campus. Also, then, funding for the future. So Berkeley has set aside $30 million for revenue generation. And this would be given in terms of loans to units that have an idea that we are confident has the potential for revenue. They would be responsible for repaying the loan, regardless of whether it's successful or not. And so there's some skin in the game there, and everybody's got to be confident that it is a revenue-generating idea, or that it will generate revenue. And 30 million sounds like a lot, but again, the budget for Berkeley is $2.4 billion, and so that's about 1.25% of the total revenue for the campus. So the size of the investment, of course, has to be relative to the size of the total budget. Another role that we play here, that one of our action items, is to convene thinkers, to create the space to generate ideas. And we do that in both in-person events as well as online. And so in-person events would be, we've had several symposiums on the campus where we have 100+ people attending. And we've got what we call spark sessions within units on campus, where the people within that unit, and they may invite other people in to participate in thinking specific for their unit. And then online, we've had several campaigns. So our online program is, in essence, a crowdsourcing tool, and we run campaigns where people can post ideas and build on ideas, comment on ideas. And in both of these, in both in-person and online, we invite the larger community for the campus. So it includes faculty, staff, and students on campus. We reach out to alumni and invite them to participate. Others in the community that are interested, in the city of Berkeley that are interested. So we're welcoming anybody that has a passion for Berkeley to participate. So let's have all of you now participate in thinking about ideas. There are 3 pieces of paper posted on the walls, and I've got 2 assistants in the room. Kathy O'Sullivan and Barbara Broke, and I are each going to take one of these positions here where the paper is posted. And I'm going to ask all of you in the audience to kind of self-distribute evenly. And we've got a short exercise that we're going to run through very quickly with you to generate some revenue ideas. So if you could quickly, everybody up and go to one of those positions. Okay, real quickly, somebody from each group, if you could just share what aha did you have, or what idea did you come up with?
Who wants to speak? Have you guys figured out your final?
No, I don't.
Sarah.
Which idea? I like to dream big. Wine programs or ice cream? Ice cream's my personal thing. I think wine programs crosses more the nature of this audience. So there are 4 institutions in California, at least 4, that have winemaking programs for their students. And a lot of the programs have internships or summer abroad programs as they're kind of a part of their program. But right now, most of the institutions don't recognize each other's programs. So we were talking about having the programs work together and having them be recognized so that the students have an opportunity to work with additional faculty. And we took it to the next level and said you partner with international institutions and local wineries to sponsor the events, and then potentially even partner with, or have it open, have an opportunity open to the public, and then add beer, because Davis also has a brewery. So it was kind of take what's already there, people work together, add a broader audience, get some sponsorship, and make it bigger.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, somebody from the group back there.
You guys have great ideas. Who's the spokesperson?
Okay, somebody in the group back there, elect somebody in the group back there.
Hi.
Okay.
So we talked a lot about branding the UC name and in different ways, using our websites, click-throughs, money for click-throughs. Somebody mentioned Florida State getting a lot of money from Gatorade, and what should we be doing? And then leveraging our facilities and parking in San Francisco, and what should be done if UC San Francisco has this beautiful facility with all this parking where nobody can get parking. What should we be doing? So that's sort of the focus, was focusing on what our real estate should be doing, what our web presence should be doing, and how that should be providing us money in the long term.
Great. Very good. Thank you. Okay, and somebody from the group up here. All right, very good.
There you go.
So I was outside the room. What was the question?
Yeah. So a highlight from this exercise.
A highlight from this exercise was really good to really get everyone's perspective on things from their respective campuses and where exactly what they're from. One thing that we really focused on here was the consulting aspect the campuses can really provide to the whole entire community, and really just any kind of industry that could really benefit from the expertise that is on the campuses. One thing that was brought up here that could be beneficial to not only the administrators, the faculty, the staff, but big one is the students have an opportunity, particularly the master's students, to really offer their level of expertise to folks in the surrounding community. So,
great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so let me give you an idea then of where we are on the Berkeley campus with the ideas. So to date, we've had over 300 ideas that have come into the program office. Now, that doesn't mean that it's limited to the 300 ideas, because people can have ideas on campus and they are not, obligated to bring them in through the program office. They can implement them on their own. But 300 that have come into us. There are 42 or some 40 plus that we are doing more research on and exploring further. And we've got 2 to date that we've actually funded and are in progress. And those include a restaurant in one of the buildings on campus, and also enhancing a ticketing system for Cal performances on campus. I will tell you that in the area of the underdevelopment, that is an area where I am now focusing in the program office on how do we escalate and get those issues through that do have the potential for generating revenue. We are experiencing the typical pace on campus in that development area, and we need to work on speeding that up. And some lessons learned here. Cast a wide net. So as I mentioned, we are inviting anybody that's got a passion for Berkeley to participate. It takes a lot of ideas to get to one good outcome. And so we cast that net wide. And we continue to look for how can we cast it even wider. But at the same time, we're also looking for those target areas. Where do we need to be targeting? But it's a difficult balance that we're trying to strike here right now. I would also say in terms of casting the net wide that we do, again, based on the culture of constraint, that we tend to look at an idea and quickly identify why that idea will not work. So when we're working with groups on idea generation, we ask for those to give feedback, and we generally ask 3 questions. We'll say, or ask them to make 3 statements or to make their statements in this way. What I like about your idea is, so that's the first piece of feedback that they can give. Here's how I would make your idea even better to build on an idea. And like we did in this exercise, how can we make that idea 10 times bigger? So to try to get rid of those constraints that we're used to working within and think in terms of possibilities. Another lesson learned here is that like other changes that we've introduced at Berkeley, we have to be careful about how we talk about what it is that we're trying to work on, because we want to say things in terms that people will be able to become engaged in it. And so words like customer and branding aren't favorite words for some people on the campus. And they think of those as being terms that are used in corporations rather than at the university. And even the word revenue is not favored by some people. And so we try to present then what we're trying to do here on campus. They think of revenue actually as being profit. And we have a long way to go before we could ever even think about profit. Right now, we're just trying to close the gap there. Building on our strengths. So again, I've talked about how we looked backwards at why were we able to accomplish what we did in OE, and how can we continue to build on that? And we also look at, as you just did earlier, where are we already generating revenue on campus, and how can we leverage those individuals who are already doing that to be our change agents and to talk for us about generating revenue on the campus. And then, again, the culture, many of the policies and procedures that we have on the campus were written in a different time for a different purpose than what we have today. And part of our responsibility, if we bump up against policies and procedures, is to help analyze those. What do we need for the campus today? And if we can make modifications in order to help things progress. To make that happen. And then lastly, it takes time. On the one hand, we're moving as quickly as we can, but to get to revenue takes time. It takes time to change the culture, to be thinking about ideas. It takes time to get that idea to a project. And then we don't get revenue on the first day of implementation. It's usually sometime after that. So it takes time to actually get to the revenue. So this is a long-term effort that's underway here. And as the quote goes, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And so that's what we're trying to do, is get to now. I would say just a couple of where are we seeing revenue generation already on campus, or the change in thinking on campus, I should say. At the last symposium that we had in February, as people were leaving, there were comments like, this is the first experience that I've had on the Berkeley campus where I spent several hours thinking creatively with my colleagues. that was really nice to hear. I like that. And then thinking about revenue generation and including revenue generation has now happened for 2 budget cycles. We just finished the second one. And also this past summer, 16,000 people on campus participating in classes and workshops and activities. I've been on campus 14 years. 14 years ago, come June, the campus was like a park. It was my own personal park, and it's not like that anymore. There were a lot of people on campus this summer, and as I was walking around, many different languages. We have become an international campus. So that's it for the presentation. We've got just a couple of minutes left. Are there any questions? I'd like to hear your comments, reactions to the idea of revenue generating on your campus. If you've got a strategy and that you're focused on revenue generation, I'd really love to hear about that.
Hi there. My name is Daniel Clark. I'm the president of the California State Student Association. I'm a student at Fresno State University, and I don't really have a question. I just really have a comment. I just want to say thank you to everyone here in the room to really taking the time to really be thinking outside the box to find out how our universities are going to be able to sustain themselves long term, knowing the fact that the state government as well as the federal government are not investing in our universities as they should. So hopefully with this kind of revenue generation, it'll take the burden off of students where we're not paying these additional student fees to attend these universities. So I just really want to say thank you to everyone here, and hopefully projects like this start turning up across the state.
Wouldn't it be great to get to the point where students don't have to pay anything? We have enough revenue coming in. Huh?
Well, it was free before 1983.
That's exactly right. Why can't we get back there again? Yes. Yeah. Other comments? Yeah.
Actually, a question.
Yeah.
With respect to revenue generating ideas that involve individuals at the campuses, and of course I'm talking specifically faculty, have you looked at revenue sharing models, and what are your advice about that?
So tell me what you mean about revenue sharing models.
Well, if faculty have an idea that they wish to disclose to the campus, typically there is some benefit coming back individually to the faculty member as well as to the campus.
Yes.
The same would be true of having master students consulting or whatever.
That's right, right. Yes, and all of that is negotiable. And I should say too, with revenue generation, so with my department, we don't charge anything for working with somebody. We want the revenue to go to the unit or units where the idea is generated. Now, they're still under whatever the, taxing probably isn't the right word, but the campus has some kind of a tax on revenue that already exists and has existed. And so the revenue would be subject to that existing tax structure. But if they get a loan, we can loan them money. They are responsible to repay the loan, but the revenue stays with the unit. That's the way it is right now. And so if there are multiple people or if there's faculty that's in there, we're willing to negotiate so that everybody, hopefully we get to win-win-win situations. Yeah.
Just follow up to the question I was just previously asked.
Yeah.
Does that also include staff being also given revenue as well? Because that builds incentive for staff to become more involved.
Sure, it's all negotiable. Yeah. Yeah.
So how about if the project doesn't make it? It's repayable, right? So you have to repay it. So
That's correct.
How would that work?
So you've got to have a sponsor that actually has budgetary authority then.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool leverage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Any other questions, comments? Yeah.
Oh, there.
So what about a faculty member or someone that has a great idea, they want to take it to market? What can the university do to foster that? And, what about the, the long-term royalties? And, since we have all these world-class researchers, taking these big ideas to market, and being more competitive in that area.
And when you say what about, what are you looking for from me? I think it sounds great, yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't know a lot about that area,
Yeah.
so I'm kind of taking the bottom-up approach.
Okay.
Is there something like this in place? Does it have a place in the university? Is it something that could be looked at, where someone has this really brilliant idea, and rather than going to Motorola and working with them, what about the university with all of our resources, helping to get these kinds of things to market?
Yeah, so I think it would depend on what the idea is. And of course, with these ideas, each one is going to be, something new probably. And so again, it's going to be negotiated in, what is the idea? First of all, what's the idea? What's the potential for revenue? I will say that's the hardest part of this, is getting to the idea that's got the potential for revenue. The details of what are we going to do with an idea once it's been identified that it's got revenue, I think all of that can be worked out. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I think we're at time. Thank you all very much. And box lunches are in the back.
Thank you, Peggy. Let's hear it for Peggy Houston.